All right. Welcome everyone to today's session. As always, organized by VODAN Africa. This will be the 14th installment of the Metadata for Machines workshop. My name is Charles Kahiro and I am the Creative Director at RavelWorks Africa. Now, for today's session, we'll be more or less taking stock somewhat of the journey which we have taken for the past 14 Metadata for Machines workshops. So following the very early days when we were even just trying to talk about what is metadata, what's an FDP, to the milestone that was achieved last week, which was the full installation of the VODAN in a box FDP, which was quite a remarkable step. So for this session, we'll be taken through it by Eric from GoFair. So yeah, I think it'll be a great session to see how far we have come. So during the presentation, as always, let's keep our mics muted to prevent background noises from disrupting the flow of the presentation. So if you haven't done so, do so now. However, once Eric is done with his presentation, we will invite all of you to make comments on the journey as it has been for you so far, and the journey on the next steps that we are going to take following this Metadata for Machines workshop. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can always drop them in the chat box and I will bring them up during the presentation, but we will have the open plenary session after the presentation. So if you're unable to ask your question in the chat box, you can ask it then. Without further ado, I will hand over to Eric. So Eric, welcome.
Great, thank you very much, Charles. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to the metadata for machine workshops. And I think it's very nice to just begin today recounting the success from last week. So we found this successful installment of the VODAN in a box application, and this followed 3 pretty intense days on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, kind of preparing for this and getting the application ready for installation. And I think if I'm correct in the time zones, it was at 3:14 East Africa time, I guess, that Mariam pushed the return key and launched successfully the VODAN in a box at the Kampala International University. I think most of you were probably overlapping on at least some of these calls last week, but it was viewed as a big success by everybody, I think, to have reached this point. And I think we're all very proud as well that, you know, the first deployment of a VODAN in a box was in fact in Uganda on the African continent. And that's quite a remarkable story. Here's a picture of that VODAN fair data point, and it's pretty modest looking right now, but it is up and running, and all the metadata in the core metadata of the fair data point is there. This is the URL for it, and of course, being VODAN in a box, it's not just the fair data point, but it's also the case report form wizard that can allow us to very easily create the case report forms now, and also the Allegrograph triple store, which gives us a query interface as well. So these 3 components are now there and operational. And this was followed pretty much immediately later that afternoon with press releases and news items at GoFair and also at Kampala International University. So big success, well documented and well deserved. But this is also maybe then a good moment to take stock of the whole process, where we began, where we've gone down this road, and where we are now. And if you just look at the timeline, we started the first Metadata for Machine workshop here on April 29. I think on April 30th, we heard from Luis on the Fair Data Point installation. Along the way, we learned about metadata in weekly metadata for machine calls. And there was troubleshooting exercises. And then it was, of course, on July 22, last Wednesday, that we launched the VODAN in a box. So just under 3 months, I guess, to go from a position where, we had people of many different backgrounds operating in 6 African countries, who I guess I'm assuming many of you did not know each other before this project. And maybe some of you were not aware of metadata or of fair data. And we've really, I think, taken it quite a distance here, going from the beginning, from that beginning to where we are today. And then really just to remind us of what's really at stake in all this. It's not just about setting up nice computer applications. It's really against the background of this global pandemic right now of coronavirus. And so when we started, there was roughly, 2.5 million total cases worldwide that were reported. And by the time we set up the Fair Data Point last week, it was something like 15 million cases and growing. And it was even last week, I think it was Wednesday, when we had a couple of reports that I saw anyways, noting that in South Africa in particular, but in the African continent in general, that coronavirus was really spiking in the number of cases. And so that's ironic, number one. But I can remember when we launched in April that there was even a little bit of discussion about, like, why are we setting up a Fair Data Point for case report forms? None of our hospitals have reported any coronavirus cases yet. So it's really quite remarkable how quickly things have changed. That was if we go back to March or February, we lived in a very different world than we do today. And not only has coronavirus made a lot of impact in a lot of different ways, but the uptake of FAIR related services and data has been really tremendous. I think we've done more for FAIR implementation in the last 3 or 4 months than we did in the last 3 or 4 years. It's quite remarkable. In that time frame, we had a number of metadata for machine workshops covering different elements of FAIR, of metadata, of the Fair Data Point, of the case report form. We talked about specifications versus implementations. And I think what's really nice about this project is that so much of what we've done is now really well documented and captured in different formats. And I think we've already begun to see that these materials are already being used by others to set up Fair Data Points or to launch again the VODAN in a box. So I expect going forward that these materials will also be refined to get very practical, very straightforward, that people can more and more independently take some videos or some documentation and just be able to set up their Fair Data Points locally as they see fit. So well done, everyone. I just wanted to go through a few slides that take us back. I'll say these slides are from Metadata for Machine Workshop #1 here. But I wanted to go through some slides just as a kind of review of what we mean by metadata, what we mean by FAIR, and how these relate to the achievement of a VODAN in a box. And I think then at the end of this, we'll have a little bit of time left over for a discussion about how we see this project progressing in the next, say, 6 to 8 weeks, or say to the end of the year. So this was a slide that was in an early metadata for machine workshop. Maybe this one was actually from workshop number 3. But this was a rough timeline that we sketched for this Phillips funded project. And what we've completed, I think, as of last week is what we were calling originally Project A. And that is essentially getting the FAIR data point, the case report forms, the wizard environment for making the case report forms, for getting that package set up, for figuring out how to configure the FAIR data point with some appropriate metadata, and how to get some documentation on that going. The timeframes here have shifted a little bit, but I am so impressed with how well we've actually accomplished a lot of what we said we wanted to do from the beginning. And I also want to say thank you to everybody who's been very persistent. If I look now, there's 27 people on the line. It's incredible that we've had the turnout week after week for this metadata for machine workshop and the continuing interest, even though it's been a real roller coaster ride. And sometimes it's been very, we feel like there's a lot of roadblocks, but we really persisted and got through it. So that's, I think, highly commendable of everybody who's been showing interest here. This is a slide that I also had in the first metadata for machine workshop call. And this was to remind us all that we're in very early days of FAIR data. And so we live in a world that is not, at this point, fair, but we are able to build components, and we are able at least to aspire to FAIR data and services. And so I like to include this video when I engage people on FAIR, because it's really a co-development project. And I think what's so nice about this project is that with the documentation and with the experience gained in setting up these FAIR data points, and in the next step where we really begin to accumulate data and analyze that, these are all cutting edge things that are happening. And everybody involved should feel like they're really, on the cutting edge, developing new technologies and new solutions that are in some ways a pretty radical departure from what we've had before. So this is also, again, just to say thanks to everybody for sticking in there and really working hard, because this is as much your development project as it is anybody else's. We've talked a lot about the FAIR data point, but maybe it's worth coming back and taking a moment to talk about FAIR again. And maybe we can see it with much more experienced eyes, having gone through the last 3 months in trying to implement FAIR. This is a list of the FAIR principles as they were originally published. And again, the whole point behind this is to try and automate the F, A, I, and R functions. That's the goal of FAIR. And we see that metadata is written all over the FAIR principles. And so there really is no FAIR data without machine actionable FAIR metadata. And that was the purpose for having this metadata for machine workshop. And when you think of the FAIR data point as essentially a metadata publication platform, then you can see how metadata and the FAIR principles are connecting here. And I also wanted to point out or remind us that our 1.3 asks us about domain relevant community standards. And one thing is for sure, that VODAN in a box is referring to a community. VODAN, or the VODAN Implementation Network, or VODAN Africa, is a community that is now implementing FAIR, and you are implementing for yourselves domain relevant community standards. And to the degree that the FAIR data points that you produce are up and running, we can display to the world the standards and the technologies by which you're implementing FAIR, and this can be something that others can reuse. And so it's very nice in this sense that you're the trendsetters, and there will be, including, I think in the Netherlands, many eyes now looking at the VODAN FAIR data point in Africa and saying, hey, you know, if they've implemented it that way, then we will follow closely along with our implementations as well. So this is just a reminder that the idea of community is really intrinsic to the FAIR principles. And certainly one way to look at this is that the VODAN implementation network is the community. The other way of looking at the FAIR principles is to divide them up into very generic infrastructure type principles, which are in red, from the blue principles here, which are really the domain relevant principles, or let's say the principles that are that must be decided upon by the people who are actually handling the data content. And I can look at it this way here. This is, and again, these are slides that I had from the very early metadata for machine workshop, but the blue principles here are implementations where the people deciding on those implementations are people in the VODAN implementation network. They could be, for example, in Uganda, at the Kampala International University, at local hospitals, could be medical staff, could be even patients themselves. It's the people who are creating and owning and stewarding the data. These are the people who decide on the blue level principles. And then this was an early schematic of the FAIR data point that we showed. And again, the color coding is the same. So the FAIR data point is the infrastructure in this case. It's those principles. Here, I'll go back. The red principles are the principles that the FAIR data point takes care of. And the blue principles are the things that the content people have to decide. And so this was the original view of the FAIR data point that we had. And of course, the FAIR data point comes with some pretty minimal core metadata just to get you going, right? It's something like the 32 questions that you had to answer to configure the FAIR data point. But also from an early metadata for machine workshop, I was mentioning that these blue principles are asking for something in particular. And if you can provide answers, you can be fulfilling, or let's say adhering to the FAIR principles then. And there's, by one way of looking at it, there's sort of 9 categories of metadata components that you need to have to adhere to the FAIR principles. And those components are described in this draft handbook for metadata for machine workshops, which we will be working on in a pretty focused way now in August and September. And a lot of what we've learned in the VODAN Africa case, a lot of that information, a lot of that experience can be embedded in the next round of edits in the handbook. But just a few more slides to really point out this, how the FAIR data point relates to the metadata for machine workshop idea. And so in red here, I'm drawing the FAIR data point. These are the infrastructure that addresses the FAIR principles that I color in red. And here's the core FAIR data point metadata, right? And we had a couple of sessions where we looked in detail at what these components are, what they're asking for, and how we might answer them. There's 4 layers of, or 4 categories of metadata here, given to us by the data catalog vocabulary. And here's these blue components, these 9 metadata components that are for the content provider. And What we envision going forward in the next level of advancement for the fair data point would be that for principle F2, for example, that's asking for rich findability metadata. What we can see in the fair data point is that some of these elements are already addressing F2. But if you really want a rich domain relevant description of your experiment or your data, your clinical information, we could begin to design, for example, CDAR templates that would allow us to craft the rich metadata that's relevant for us in VODAN Africa. And we can figure out ways then to link the CDAR metadata into the core fair metadata or fair data point metadata. So we can begin to build these components, these other metadata components, and link them to this core metadata. And likewise, for principle R 1.1, which is asking for licenses, we can imagine finding a list of machine actionable licenses that may be more suited for us under certain conditions with certain kinds of data. And so those components can also be fitted in. And then if we look at R 1.2, again, some of these are already built into the fair data point, but for really semantically rich, very descriptive provenance metadata in category number 8 here, again, we could build CDAR templates that might better describe the scientific content or the medical content that we have, and we can link those templates back into the fair data point. And in the background, we are busy developing all kinds of options here, nano publications, other third-party platforms that could come in and offer solutions for these different classes of metadata. And more, as metadata for machine workshops develop, we think we can build up a whole treasure chest of metadata options, which are linkable into the fair data point. And we can, over time, begin to create richer and richer machine actionable descriptions of our data assets. And I thought it was fun just to go through these last slides here, because they really pull together everything we've talked about over the last 14 weeks. It's the fair data point, it's the metadata, it's the different kind of components that we can build. All of this is linkable through the RDF descriptions that we have. So this was just a way of kind of summarizing the big picture, because I know we can get lost in the details very easily. And that's all I will say, or all I really wanted to say as a kind of taking stock moment for us. But we have still a half hour here, and I think it would be very nice if we can open it up for discussions. Perhaps Miriam or Francesca or Bert would like to say some things as well. But I would like to also ask everybody, where do we go next? And if you think of yourself, so there's a group question: where does this project go next? What's the objectives? But it's also a question for each of us individually. Where do you see yourself? What role do you play in this pretty complicated process going forward? And so I would just like to open it up for discussion at this point. But maybe we begin first with either Francesca or Miriam or Bert, if they would like to say something.
Thank you, Eric. Congratulations again to every one of us, and also thank you most sincerely for seeing to the success of the completion of our first VODAN in a box. I guess Charles will help us to moderate the session briefly while we hear from the participants before I kind of give a concluding remark on what we want to do next in the next few weeks. I know some of the countries could have, at least Nigeria, I've been discussing with them, and Ethiopia. We had a pre-installation and a kind of bring them up to speed webinar yesterday with Miriam and Getu Wondimu and the rest of the team. So they may have questions or have some announcements to make on what they plan to do next. If there are things that they want VODAN Africa to address as they prepare to launch their own VODAN in a box. So those are the things we want to hear before I make the announcement. So Charles, if you will help us to moderate the next session with the participants, the country teams.
Yeah, I will start off with the country leads or the project leads. Given the presentation by Eric so far, even just taking the whole experience in general, how do you feel the journey has been for you and your teams? Do you feel you have come? Do you feel you are up to speed so far? Or do you feel there have been certain barriers in your way that you may need support from us, that we need to give you support on? And also going forward as we proceed, given that we have come the full length or full circle, what do you feel would be the next steps for your country project? Don't worry, it doesn't have to be anything super profound. It's just your experience through the M4M so far.
Yeah, can I say something?
By all means.
Okay, this is Dr. Sekinat Foloronsho from Nigeria.
Yes.
And I can say that it has been an exciting journey, because before VODAN, we never knew there was anything like fair data. We just keep our data in the repository. And as a machine learner, data scientist, we know that data is gold. And with data, we can do so many things: decision support system, learn patterns from the past, use it for the future. But now, with the advent of fair data, I think it's an awesome thing. And it even makes it greater for us to get our data in a fair format. And talking about pandemic, is something that hits a country or countries where they don't plan for. But with the advent of this data now, I think the fair data is a good thing. We can plan into the future from past data. And Eric has been so wonderful with the training that we have received so far. And from the scoping exercise, Nigeria, we have been able to put up some of our data in the fair format, waiting for our final FDP to come home so that we can upload the data in the FDP. So some of the problems that we have, though we are overcoming them gradually, is the CRF form. It's not the CRF form per se, but getting data for the CRF form, but we are overcoming it gradually. So I want to say thank you to everyone and congratulations to us all. Thank you.
Great. Those are the sentiments from the Nigeria group. Just as a follow-up, what do you feel would be the next steps for your project?
I'm not sure if we still have Dr. Sekinat online, but I think I can answer that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer that question because I've been in talks with them. With the teams in Nigeria, I know presently there are 2 FDPs that are actually at the ready level of deployment, the IBBUL and then the Data Science Nigeria. Yes, and I'm finalizing the details at the background so that we're hoping by the next things we're going to be doing is to install the VODAN in a box for the 2 FDPs. And probably, yeah, at least that's for Nigeria.
Maybe we can hear from
Okay,
the
I think
other. Bert has raised his hand.
I think Bert is raising his hand, yeah.
Yes, that is fine, Charles. Thanks very much. Yeah, I would like to say a few words. First of all, you know, I would like to thank the entire team because I think this is a wonderful team effort that in such a short time period we've been able to actually pull it through and come to a real proof of concept last week. So that is excellent. It will help us also because it will help us to actually, let's say, get more parties interested in what we're trying to do here. It will be easier to add on countries. It will be easier to add on different institutes now that we have something that is actually working and that can be demonstrated. So I think that's a wonderful achievement. Definitely, I would like to thank Eric for guiding us through those 14 weeks. And Eric, the summary that you gave just a few minutes ago, I think sums it all up. It gives a very good flow in terms of what we've been trying to achieve. Now, I think what we should not forget is that this is only the infrastructure. So this is not yet the results. So there's still a way to go. And personally, you know, I think it only will be a success once we have patient data included, hopefully by using the wizard that we saw last week. So if real patient data gets into the system, hopefully in multiple countries or in multiple locations. And then we were able to run, you know, a number of these queries like we saw last week over these fair data points. Then I think we can really see that this is not only a proof of concept, but it will also work and actually add value in a live environment. So you know, my feeling is that it's really now for all the different people on this call to see, okay, where can we get the patient data? Where can we get that from? How can we input it into the system? You know, either by using the wizard or maybe by another means like an API or something else. But it looks to me the moment maybe through the wizard is probably quite simple. And then, you know, run a few more of these queries. Maybe at the start, simply in terms of counting the different patients against a number of characteristics that we can think of. So, you know, so great achievement, but we're not yet there. We still have to continue to work to get it really into a live situation where we can get more benefits out of the system.
Good. I guess the main take home is the journey isn't over yet.
Yeah, the journey is not over yet, although it's wonderful to sit down and to celebrate, you know, because this was an important milestone. But
yes,
it's only a milestone. Eh? There's more to come. There's more to come.
Comments from the other countries?
Hello, Charles.
Yes.
May I speak?
Yes. Go ahead.
This is Gato from Ethiopia. Yeah. Yeah. The training has been very interesting and informative. we have came to understand what FAIR principles are and their use. Up until week 9, we were actively participating. We were preparing server space and domain names. Unfortunately, the internet went on shutdown and for the last 4 weeks, we were not able to follow the training. As I can see from the recorded videos, a lot of things have been done in those weeks. Unfortunately, we missed a lot of things. Yesterday, we tried to have a webinar to bring our team up to speed. Professor Francisca and Mariam gave us some highlights on CEDAR. I hope we will have additional discussions and trainings to bring us up to speed. Hopefully, our members, team members, will watch those videos and try to understand what has been gone in those 4 weeks we missed. So this was our update. For the next, I think we need to the same as what the KIU did. We have to do the same. We have to install the VODAN inbox as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But until now, we are not able to find server space and domain name because of the bureaucracy in our university. So maybe Professor Francisca will announce the solution for this. I think she mentioned it yesterday. I hope she will give us a highlight. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Geto. I believe Francisca did highlight that there are plans for the Ethiopia team, at least to get you up to speed. The good thing is everything that has been done has been recorded, every single session, which would be available, is available on the VODAN website. So it should be easy for you guys to download and at least get well versed with whatever was discussed. And if there are any challenges, it's easy for you guys to reach out to us for support. But I believe Francisca has a plan for you guys. I don't know whether Francisca wants to go through it now, but
yes, yeah. Thank you, yeah.
Yes, indeed. There are arrangements have been made to configure the VPS for the server droplet for Ethiopia, Nigeria, actually for the rest of the countries on the team. And I have been in touch with Professor Miriam and also the, I think I did mention it yesterday, to Getu and the rest of the team during the webinar. So I'm hoping that before the end of this week, we should have that arrangement completed, and I will communicate with the country teams. Actually, even as we speak, I'm writing an email to Bet on the same subject.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
So that's Ethiopia for you. We haven't had anything yet from Kenya, Tunisia.
Yes,
yeah.
Kenya, I'm here. I wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, first of all, just 3 points I wanted to raise. The first one is to thank Eric. I was sharing Eric last week. That is a wonderful tutor, because when we were going to
Hello?
lost him. It's probably due to network.
Oh, I thought it's my end that has network issues. Yeah, I think Dr. Reginald, maybe we can go to one of the other country teams, and then when he's back, we can pick it up from where he left off. Do we have anyone from the Tunisia? Sorry?
Yes, Professor Mariam raised her hand. She has her
All
hands
right.
up. Professor Mariam from Tunisia.
Professor?
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
First, I'm this Mariam from Tunisia.
Great.
First of all, on the behalf of the Tunisian team, I'd like to express our great pleasure to be in the VODAN team. And I want to highlight at first the importance of the different training sessions. They were very beneficial and helpful for us. So many thanks, especially for Eric, and also for Professor Francesca, Professor Mariam, and also all the team of VODAN from different countries. So I have to just to express or to present our situation in this stage of this project. Fortunately, we have just obtained the domain for the fair data point that is related to the University of Sousse, and now we are working on the technical installation and the local configuration of the fair data point. And concerning the metadata, we are working to complete the template which we are created on the CIDAR template, and then in the next week we will start the entry of data, and then we will work to link the fair data point or the fair data point to data. So it was our situation concerning the whole project, and at final I have to thank all the VODAN team. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I believe that's a good update in terms of where the Tunisia office or Tunisia project has reached. I don't know whether there are any glaring bottlenecks for all the country offices so far that are either keeping them from advancing faster or the specific support that is required from the VODAN Africa team to them so that it can help their progress move much smoother. So I don't know whether there are any comments either from the data stewards or from the country leads in terms of direct support that they require from the VODAN Africa team. I know Ethiopia has the challenge with the domain name, which is being addressed. Do any of the other country teams have any other support requests, if I can put them that way? All right, it seems everyone is doing well and the train is chugging along at a good pace. So I don't think Dr. Reginald has joined us yet, but when he does, we'll go back to his 3 points. But for now, I will hand it over to Francisca so that she can give us the next steps from the VODAN Africa team going forward.
Sorry, first. Cells.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay,
someone
this
is someone
Abdullah
trying?
from IBB.
The Ebola team.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So like Prof. Francisca did mention,
Yep.
we've been doing a lot of on the ground work to get the subdomains ready and all. But and of course, ahead of the next steps, I was just concerned about the data,
Yep.
which I'm happy. I'm happy it's Professor Betts mentioned specifically about. From here, there's this existing data sets that, of course, are not clinically, they do not involve clinical data, so to say. And it has been a question of, must all data be based on the World Health CRF? Hello?
Hello. Just to repeat your question, are you asking whether all the data needs to be based on the WHO CRF?
Yes, please.
I believe so. Based on the models that have been created and the case report forms that have been set up for or are being set up using the CEDA platform and the DSW, they're all based on the WHO case report form. So we all have a standardized way of reporting the COVID data. Now, I believe amendments can be made to the semantic model so that you can collect other pieces of data that you may consider crucial, but I would be needed that you need to do that before you can modify the case report form itself on the platform. I don't know whether Eric or Bart have comments on the same.
Yeah, indeed. Excuse me. The way I would phrase it is to say that the VODAN Africa project has for itself a standard case report form implementation that it follows.
Yeah.
And this is available for all, but it's also voluntary. Anyone may choose to use it or not, but certainly by following it, you can have some sense of a guarantee that it has a high level of fairness built into it, and that it's something that others in your community are also actively using.
Yep.
That being said, there's no reason why on a fair data point, you could not include other kinds of data altogether. And I think we see in Tunisia, they're really leading that effort by including like the migratory reports of COVID patients. Interviews with people, a very different kind of data, but nonetheless are perfectly appropriate on a fair data point, or we can point to them. So it's really up to the discretion of the user, and I think this is really consistent with the view of a distributed internet of fair data and services, that it's really up to the discretion of the user what they would like to do and how they would like to implement. The hope from the Go Fair point of view is that we can encourage, through smart applications, we can encourage a convergence on some implementation choices that can maximize interoperability far and wide. But it's really at the discretion of the user.
Yep. I can see Bert is asking whether we have live patient data already input in the fair data point. So it's back to the country teams. Do you have challenges acquiring the data, or are the challenges mainly technical? So you have the data already, it's just setting up the data point and loading it.
Yes, Charles, my question was really about the fact that, when you look at proof of concept, of course, we've used either mock data or so-called synthetic data.
Yeah.
And I was trying to see if we could already, maybe from some of the countries, we could already see if we get closer to getting real patient data.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes it's difficult. Maybe it has to come from other systems, or maybe it has to, it's now in some kind of handwritten form. But I would really like to see that over time, especially in the next coming weeks or so, that if we can really load the system up with some real data, that would be a fantastic new step in the process.
Yeah.
So if one of the countries gets there, I think it would be nice to share it with the others, to announce it also as an interesting step forwards.
Yeah. Opinions and comments on the same?
Yeah, yes, I was distracted a little while Beth was talking, but just to point out that, like for the Uganda thing, we actually linked to the Tunisia data, which are not patient data per se, but they're also COVID-19 data. And arrangements are in place to get COVID-19 data for the Uganda FDP. But I believe that some Nigerian teams, they already have COVID-19 data. They just need us now to push things up so that they can have their FDPs installed and then go on to the next steps. I believe I also typed that into the chat box, but just in case Bert missed that answer to his question.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see that. Thanks very much.
Yeah, the response is fine. Just another question.
Yeah.
So for our Ministry of Health here, they do have information systems already. I think for where we reside, there's the DHIS used for, I think, recording COVID-19 data. And so it could be seen to be a duplication kind of, provide another, a copy of those data for the stick. Is this project seeking to integrate some of those existing systems, so that probably at the bottom or so with the API thing, there could be some integration in place, also for sustainability?
That's a great question. I believe Uganda has a similar experience because the government is also using the DHIS system.
Yes, and Kenya too. Yes, and Kenya. And if I remember, I think Dr. Reginald actually was commissioned to work on, to look at similarities and an integration strategy. But but the country integrated health systems data is not verified. And part of what Modern Africa is also looking at is the possibility of helping the countries to, or at least offering that service of making their data fair. It's a future thing that we're looking at, that we're looking out for. So, and it's one of the reasons to also help with the bureaucratic tapes. It's one of the reasons why we don't limit the partnerships to the universities only, but to also make sure that there is sufficient buy-in from the ministries of health. I know in Uganda we have a Dr. Araya who also has been part of an interface with the Ministry of Health, but it's a futuristic thing on how we can help the government who already have a digital health information system to also make the information fair, or to make the data fair.
Yeah. Abdullahi, I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, fair enough. That's quite yeah, good.
All right. I see Dr. Reginald's 3 points are in the chat box, highlighting the ability as well to test out the GitHub app on the counties, highlighting Eric's supreme tutorship to that end, as well as they've been able to find a way to introduce the app to the government system. So the MOH leads have more or less requested a demo to the directors before they can give permission for the introduction of the FDP, I guess. So I don't know whether his audio is working right now, where he can give us the brief. But in case it's not, Dr. Reginald, we have recognized your 3 points. With that being said, I guess, Francisca, we will go to the next steps now.
Yes, thank you, Charles, and thanks to everyone. We actually already mentioned the next steps within the discussion, which is the installation of the VODAN in a box in Nigeria and Ethiopia and every other country that is ready. I can see Kudakwashi has mentioned that Zimbabwe, it's also getting ready. So in addition, we also have to ensure that for each of the country teams, to ensure that the data stewards, they begin to enter the data into the ECRF. So those are the things we'll be doing. We'll be sending out more information in the coming days as the preparation of what to do and what to expect for the next M4M. That's on Tuesday next week. So the webinar will continue as usual every week, and Ivy will be sending out the announcements, and if there are some expectations, some special expectations, she will also send that in addition to the usual announcements. That's it from me. Thank you.
All right. So as you have heard, we will continue to have the M4Ms. For next week, I think it will be more centered also on the progress for each of the country teams. The hope is that by the end of August, all country teams will have everything more or less running as it should. Yeah, pretty much it. So I don't know whether there are any closing remarks or comments from the participants before we say goodbye.
Just
Going once. All right.
Yeah, the only thing, Charles, this is Bert here. I think that next week I'm on holiday. I think Eric is on holiday. But I think you are now in a perfect condition to actually pick it up over the next couple of weeks with your team. That is what I guess at this moment.
Yeah, we will be here as well for next week. So we will set something up.
Good.
While you guys are on holiday.
Good. While we are doing a holiday. That is good. But we'll be back. We'll be back. Don't worry. Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
Any closing remarks from anyone else?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mariam.
Hi, Mariam.
Hello. So, as the technical coordinator of the WADAN Africa, I'd like to thank everyone for your cooperation, participation. Thank you so much, Eric, for these interesting things that you've taught everyone. Thank you, Bart. I hope you enjoy your holiday. And I believe I'll be conducting some of the, Francisca, I will be conducting the next workshop, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, so I look forward to seeing the rest of you next week. And with Uganda, our next plan is to get access to some real life COVID-19 data, and we'll be able to move on to the next. And for the rest of the other technical leads or country leads designing the VODAN boxes for their countries, you can always feel free to send me a message or an email whenever you need assistance in any way. And well, I think that's all I have to say for now. And thank you, Charles. Thank you, Francisca. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Miriam, for that. Any other comments? All right, I believe it's a wrap then. Thank you everyone for joining us. Like Mariam has said, be sure to join us next week for the 15th installment of the Metadata for Machines workshop. Be on Tuesday, as always. Details on the timings and the different topic areas will be shared on the VODAN Africa comms channels, whether it's Slack or the WhatsApp group. Also, a recorded version of this webinar will be available on the VODAN Africa website, as are the other webinars. So if you need to review this one or any other webinars that have been held so far, you can check it out there. You will find them ready for download, more or less. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Eric. Enjoy your holiday.
Hey, will do. Thanks, Francesca. See you later.
All right, Beth, bye. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Francisca.